friends, you want to know one thing that I think is a wonderful form of self-care when your mental health is in the toilet? Doing an entire reading vlog of reading books by one of your favorite authors. And today we're just going to read 3 of Kennedy Ryan's books. They're all like the next book in series that I'm in the middle of, series that I'm loving. And so I truly think that this is going to be an incredible video because every book that I'm about to read has to be incredible. You know what I'm saying? So in this book, we are going to be reading Score by Kennedy Ryan, and I did score a signed copy. We love to see that. And this is book 2, and their first book is Real. I don't actually know the name of the series. Does it say? Does it say the name of... Oh, it does. The Harlem Renaissance. Apparently there's a novella that is a cross between these 2 series also, which is very interesting. But anywho, this one says, you never forget your first love. Isn't that what they say? Verity Hill knows this truth intimately. She didn't simply miss Wright Monk Bellamy when they parted ways in college. She's haunted by his touch. Every kiss any lover sends is a shadow of what they had. Time heals all wounds. Isn't that what they say? Monk doesn't believe that for a second. He wasn't simply betrayed when he and Verity split. He was devastated, with parts of him left behind in the ruins of all that was destroyed. More than a decade after their disastrous breakup, Verity and Monk must work together on the set of an epic Harlem Renaissance biopic, with Monk, now a world-class musician, creating the score, and Verity, an award-winning screenwriter, penning the script. There's Oscar buzz before shooting even begins. This once-in-a-lifetime project could catapult them both to new heights, but can they put the past behind them for the sake of the film, or for the sake of something more? So it's probably going to be amazing, and I'm very interested to see if Cannon, and I don't remember the girl's name in book 1, are like the actors in this movie. That would be very interesting. Then we have Blockshot, book 2 in the Hoops series. This one says, if Jared Foster had $1 for every time Banner Morales made his heart skip a beat, the heart everyone assumes is frozen over, he'd be richer than he already is. He's found success as a sports agent by always assuming no means I'll think about it, and he knows Banner's thinking about him. Her simmering anger, the way she puts him in his place, foreplay. She thinks she's won the game, but they are just getting started. If Banner had $1 for every time Jared broke her heart, she'd have exactly $1. One epic failure of a night, right after parting on such bad terms, Banner has no intention of ever giving Jared a second chance. She's found success in a field ruled by men like him. She's learned to call the shots and block them when she has to. So she'll ignore the way he makes her heart pound. Sure, he seems carved from her most private fantasies, but she can get past that. She's got $1 and Jared won't have her. And then we have got The Rebel King. Anything I read on the back of this may be a spoiler for book 1 because it did leave on a crazy cliffhanger. So if you have not read the first book, which is called The Kingmaker, then maybe don't. It's actually so funny. In this it says that standalones are real and Before I Let Go, and now they're both series. So if you have not read Kingmaker, then maybe skip past this, but I am going to read this starting now. Surrender is what Maxim demanded of Lennox Hunter's body and heart, but she had other plans. Together they were fast-burning fascination and combustible chemistry, and a son of an oil baron and the warrior daughter fighting to preserve her heritage. She trusted him, and he turned out to be a thief who stole her love. Still, if what they had was a lie, why had it felt so real? Now the man she swore to hate is poised to have it all, and he wants Lennox by his side. But when the two of them are forced to face the unthinkable, fate tests them at every turn. Navigating treacherous political landscapes for their quest of justice, Maxim and Lennox soon learn that power is a game and they are merely pawns and players. Facing insurmountable odds, will they win the world or will they lose it all? Okay, I guess that wasn't super spoilery. I don't know. I'm so excited for all of these, and I cannot wait to be back in the Kennedy Ryan world and into her writing, because these books break your heart and then put it back together and then break it again and then put it back together, and so good. So good. I love her. Hello friends, we are about halfway through Blockshot by Miss Kennedy Ryan, and I figured I would bring y'all into my kitchen. The lighting is always better this way, but typically you can like then see all of my, here's the book. Where to really put her for our chat. I don't know, I guess I can put it there. Maybe clean off the stove a little bit. But I'm about halfway through this book and I'm really not liking it, which I am devastated by. But this book is very heavily into the cheating trope, which one thing about me, and I feel like most people honestly, it just, that trope is difficult for me to really forgive, get past, whatever. Currently, I am gonna be making like, I'm gonna have like salad bar tonight, and so I'm gonna get the ingredients prepped. So when it comes to dinner time, I can just make the chicken. That's like my plan of action. Egg, cucumber, tomato, onion. Corn. And then I do plan on making bacon. So all of these ingredients are perfectly gonna fit in here in the 5-hole slot, and then I'll probably do chicken and bacon in here later. And that'll be my plan. Have like croutons and stuff like that. But anywho, so I just really can't deal with the cheating trope. The only time I can like maybe, and this is like a big maybe, I'm still not like obsessed with it existing, is if the guy is like, the person that being cheated on is like a horrible human being. Like book 1 of this series, the guy was extremely abusive to her. So if she had been cheating on him, well, he would have deserved it. But the girl in this book, her name's Banner, her boyfriend is a really nice guy. He's a really good guy. And so her cheating on him, even if she did tell him very shortly after, I don't know. It just does not sit right with me. But basically, in this book, we've got our 2 characters, Jared and Banner. Banner's the girl, Jared is the guy. They both work in this same industry. Hold on. Sports agents, and they in fact actually went to college together. They were study buddies, and they were actually quite close in college. And there is a big talk about weight and weight insecurity in this book. So if that is something that is triggering to you, just know that it is pretty prevalent in this book. But basically, Banner was overweight in school, and she was always quite self-conscious of that. And so she's now like on Weight Watchers, and she does talk quite a bit about like her weight loss in the book. So again, like if that's something that you find to be triggering, just know we do talk about it. But whenever they were there, Jared was trying to get into like this secret society type situation, and part of his initiation was he had to, quote, fuck the fat girl, aka Banner. And he and Banner were really good friends, and he did in fact actually like have feelings for her, so he didn't really like consider this a punishment. He was like, okay, and kind of. And so he does, but then it basically gets thrown in her face that the only reason he did this was to like get into this secret society. So naturally, like, she's extremely hurt by this scenario. So years later, like I said, they both work in this same industry, and it's difficult because she fucking hates him. He's like kind of like in love with her, blah, blah. Oh, there's a bug in here. What the fuck? Okay, I suppose we're gonna chop everything by hand because that was a jump scare. There was like a fly in there. Gross. That'll be a problem for Chris. Anyhow, so she is basically a big fat hater of this guy at this point, which, like, rightfully so. He fucking sucks. And so now they're kind of like, he's like into her. I don't know. It's this really weird dynamic where, like, they have like this really toxic past where they've like slept together, but they're kind of having to work together, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And they're having all of these issues. Issues, and oh my god, my train of thought is so lost. My brain is so mashed potatoes. Okay, so they're both working as these sports agents, and so they cross paths quite a lot, trying to vie for different people to represent. And so they go on this trip, and like, I'm about halfway. There's been so many spice scenes, and honestly, like, her having like wet dreams about him while dating this other guy, and this other guy's out of town a lot, blah, blah, blah. So basically, she is now officially full on, she was already like emotionally cheating on her boyfriend, which I'm already like, girl, get it together about. Now she has full on like penetration cheated on him, and that's just like such a hard line for me that, like, I can't really forgive a character once we have crossed that line. And like, I do understand that she has all these like feelings for him, and she does apologize and she does confess, blah, blah, blah. So like, maybe that could be like enough for some people to forgive her, but unfortunately for me, that is not enough for a redemption arc. So I naturally now don't like her, and I'm not rooting for their relationship because it's built on deceit. And like, she does feel bad, she's crying, she's mourning the loss of this relationship, but I'm just like, girly pop, you brought this upon yourself, and like, he was not a bad guy. You literally could have broken up with him. Like, you mentioned so many times how wrong it was that you were having all of these like inappropriate dreams about him while being with your boyfriend. So I'm not really sure like how we didn't then come to the conclusion that maybe we should just break up with boyfriend, because you're already having all of these inappropriate dreams. All of the onion does not fit, so I am just gonna cut it up and pop it in here for sandwiches. So there's that. I was like, why do I still have 3 spots? Because I'm like, oh, I have to come right to the eggs. Anywho, so I don't know. I'm just not rooting for her, and it is making the whole thing a little bit more complicated, because when you're not able to, for whatever reason, root for one of the main characters, it makes it difficult to root for their love story. The sticker would not come off, so I just cut the chunk off. But that's where we're at. For better or for worse, we're meeting in the same spot as last time to talk about Block Shot, okay? This book went bad. I am done with it. Couldn't be happier to tell you that. Unfortunately, I'm making a salad, and all I can do is maybe like one of these containers. Is one of these like a normal size? I don't really know. The only bowl that I have is literally massive. This is like also kind of big, but it's definitely smaller than the bowl. Oh, let me get this stuff out. happens when you ask your husband to put some of the stuff away. Everything's a little wonky in its location. Okay, so we are gonna work on making my lunch, but this book, I've already talked to you guys a lot about what the book was about, obviously. And I ended up rating this book 2 stars, and this is now officially my least favorite and lowest rated Kennedy Ryan book, and I am honestly very upset by that. I thought for sure she would be an author that never in her history with me would get a rating lower than like a 4. But she's gotten a couple of 4s by me, but giving her a 2 did hurt. But I just couldn't. So some could argue that book 1 in this series, Blockshot, also involved a bit of emotional cheating. And I can for sure acknowledge and see that. However, the caveat is that her boyfriend in the first book, the girl's boyfriend, was quite literally beating the fuck out of her. So like, and she could not leave. She could not leave. She had no safe way to leave the situation. So I feel like that's a very different scenario than being with somebody who is your best friend and loves and cares about you, and you're just horny and decide to fuck somebody else. So that was like my real big issue, was I could not get past that because of the reasoning being that like he was so good to her. He was such a good guy, and she was just horny. Like, that's really all that it came down to. This is like not a lot of chicken, but it's like fine, because I have like an awkward amount of chicken. I might go look and see what's in this other. I have 2, I boxed the chicken up in a couple of different containers, and I might just go see what's in the other one, if there's like another odd sized piece. Like a little bit more than this, but I do think I should have probably gotten 2 packages of chicken cutlets, and I did not yet. There's this like weird little piece in here, so I'll just take that, and that's fine. I think I should have gotten more chicken because there's not like a ton left over for me and my husband to both make leftovers with it, you know what I mean? Knowing that that was the case, I think we should have maybe gotten a little bit more, but we didn't, so it is what it is. I'm gonna microwave this briefly. But yeah, so I just could not get past that aspect, which I've now talked about enough. I don't think I need to keep harping on about it, but that is the big reason it had to go down. I did like in the second half of the book getting to see, like, honestly, the consequences of her actions with that scenario really play out, and there was some pretty heavy topics involving illness in the second portion, specifically like cancer. So if that is something that is triggering to you, just know it is prevalent in the later half of the book, but not something that triggers me, thankfully. So yeah, we just got to see like their relation. I just like did not care about them. My issue also is I feel like whenever I rate a book, I was just talking to my friend about this. Whenever I rate a book a 4, 5, or a 1, I feel like I have a lot to say. But it's those 2 and 3 star books that just kind of feel like nothing to me. So with that being said, like I said, it was not great. I didn't love it. And there's that. But what I am loving is last night I read 25% of The Rebel King for this video. And I'm going to tell you, this is straight up now, here is your warning. You are being warned. If you have not read The Kingmaker, you are going to be spoiled for The Kingmaker. As I start talking about this book, there's no way to talk about it without spoilers. Okay, we're getting into it in 3, 2, 1. So, book 1, The Kingmaker, begins with our girl. The guy's name is Maxim. The girl's name is Lennox. I'm like, he calls her Nix. What's her full name? Lennox. And Lennox is an indigenous woman, and the first book ends with her being basically held by the throat over a cliff while she and her ex/friend, who's a doctor, are being kidnapped in Costa Rica. And that's kind of where book 1 ended. So book 2 kind of picks up like right there with them with having been drugged, a bag over their head, being brought to a second location, and she finds out that essentially the other guy, whose name couldn't tell you, Warren maybe, he is kind of not necessarily a bad guy, but also like he's not necessarily, I had this other container of egg that like did not fit, so I'm just gonna use that. He's not necessarily like a bad guy, but he's not necessarily a stand-up guy, and he's been working with this drug company to make like this crazy vaccine that can be used for like, if in the wrong hands, could be used for like medical warfare essentially. So they don't want it in the wrong hands. These bad guys in Costa Rica found out about this vaccine, and now they are holding Warren, I think is his name, for ransom to try to get this vaccine plus $10 million. It also has Lennox, but she's more so being held there as like incentive and collateral, where they are threatening that if they don't get the vaccine and the money within 48 hours, they're gonna kill her. So Maxim finds out about all of this, and he is trying to like use his money to get her back, but these people aren't necessarily all that concerned about the money. They more so want the vaccine, and he is not able to produce that for them. So that's causing a lot of issues. And so his brother Maxim's brother Owen is running for president, and though the government does not get involved in hostage, they don't negotiate with terrorists and all of that jazz, he is trying to help get Lennox back for his brother. So they send a bunch of people along with Lennox, along with his own personal hostage negotiator, because he is like very wealthy. He sends all of them to Costa Rica to find her. And we find out that before Lennox went on this trip to Costa Rica, he had given her this bracelet with a compass on it. Not to Lennox's knowledge, she did not know, and even at 25%, she still does not know. This bracelet has a tracking device in it. It was never turned on, but he is able to remote turn it on and find her and get her back. So now we're at 25%. She is back in America. It's been like a few days post situation, and she is basically like trying to cope with the effects of what just happened to her. You know what I mean? So that is where the cookie crumbles on that one. So I'm loving that one. Didn't like the other one. I'm gonna listen to something else for a different video. I do have a video coming up where I'm gonna be finishing out the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and so I'm gonna try listening to them in between other things. But I did get Score on Everand, so I will be listening to that soon. We have finished The Rebel King by Kennedy Ryan, and this book was, wait for it, 5 stars. 5 fucking stars, baby. I feel like reading this book, with there being so much political talk, as well as talk about how basically taken advantage of the Native American people are, how disrespected, how their land is taken, their women go missing. Like the dedication in this, was it the dedication in this book? Yes, it says dedicated to the sisters we didn't hear, never looked for, and never found. I feel like the time of reading this, I read this over 4th of July weekend, and I feel like that was just such a perfect time to read a book about these topics. And I was down bed crying at the gym in the second half. Something absolutely crazy crazy happened right as I picked the book back up. Well, not right, at about 40-ish%. Something absolutely wild happened that I'm not going to tell you because it's a spoiler, but then it does kind of spoil the rest of the book. So unfortunately for y'all, I'm not really going to tell you any more about the plot, but I feel like I've already told you quite a bit plot-wise about this book. So there's that, but I don't want to spoil anything that happened because I was shaking in my boots, but just know 5 stars. So we have a 2-star and a 5-star. Honestly, really opposite ends of the spectrum, and that will leave us with score. I'm not quite ready to start this book, but when I am, you'll be the first to know. Okay guys, we are finally, it's been a few days, halfway through score. I will say I have deeply struggled to get into this book, but now that I'm in it, I feel very much so in it to win it. In this book, I do think that, like, I don't love the setup. We've kind of bounced around timelines quite a bit in this book, and I have found that, like, very tricky because we start with the prelude of Verity in present day. And then we move into like movement 1 and we're going back to like when she's in college. And I found that like it is very confusing. We have our main girl Verity and our main guy's name is Monk. And Verity is, for the majority of the first half of the book, we are following her through college. She has switched colleges. She was going to like the most prestigious school for film writing in like the country, and she ended up leaving that school on not the great of circumstances, which you do find out why throughout the book. And it's not, I don't even think a spoiler because it does talk about it in the author's note in the beginning. She is dealing with like a mental health crisis and has to leave school. She loses all of her scholarships and kind of feels like she's ruined her chances at a good future. She switches to this new school where she meets this guy Monk, and they kind of hit it off as friends, lovers, whatever. They start dating, and everything is going pretty wonderfully between them until she experiences another psychological break episode scenario. And we do learn that she like lives with her aunts and that she's bisexual. That's also some representation we have in here, and that they have been really trying to help her like pay through school and stuff because she's lost all these scholarships and all these opportunities because of this. But after this like mental break happens, she is formally diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and we really get to see her come to grips with this diagnosis. And then we flash forward years later of her having lived with this diagnosis. We get snippets of how it has been through these years of her having this and knowing what she has and being able to find tools to cope and understand what her brain is going through. And so now we're all of these years later where we're getting what's happening on the back, where she is working on this biopic, which the biopic she's working on, this book is actually happening simultaneously at the same time as real. We have crossed the timelines. They are now kind of happening in the same timeline of working on the film that they worked on in real is this film that they're working on screenwriting and scoring. So Verity is working on writing the like story and a lot of like the history of what's going into this biopic, and Monk is working on the score for the production, like the music and all of that stuff. So at the halfway point, they have like crossed paths. However, Monk has a lot of anger towards Verity. She did some things towards the end of their relationship that he deems unforgivable, and she understands where he is coming from and understands his anger towards her. She, however, doesn't like to disclose to many people in the industry her diagnosis. That's her business to sell, and she doesn't necessarily want to tell him. The guy Cannon, who is the main male character in Real, he knows that she's been diagnosed, has this diagnosis, because prior to hiring her, he asked for a meeting because he talked about her with somebody else in the industry, and they were like, she's not reliable, she bailed on me last minute, and he's like, I just need to know that, like, you're gonna, like, stick with this. And she confided in him, and he's kept it secret. He's kept her business between them and just checks in on her pretty frequently, but she does not necessarily want Cannon to know this information because she doesn't deem it to be his business. I'm gonna guess he does eventually learn and forgive her because it is a romance after all, but it is interesting seeing her, like, just kind of take what he's throwing at her, not like the insults, but he's letting her know that she hurt him, and she's taking accountability for her actions and is, like, understanding that, like, yeah, she hurt him, it is what it is. But they do happen to keep catching each other's eye, and they are very drawn to each other, and it is dual point of view. And when we are in Monk's point of view, we know that he's, like, going to these events in hopes of seeing Verity. He doesn't need to be there, but he's going because he does want to see her, because he does still feel this, like, magnetic pull to her. And I am interested to see where we go in the second half, but I am glad that we're out of the past point of view, because I do feel like that past point of view, I'm telling you, lasted so long. The past point of view was, this is still the past. Yes, the past point of view was 160 pages of the book. And yes, we needed it for the buildup of the story, but I do think it was a little bit longer than it needed to be. But overall, I am having a very good time with this book. Alrighty, friends, we have finished Score. We're done with this video. We're done with some Kennedy Ryan. So we had a really mixed bag. I ended up landing on a 4-star in this book. I do feel like the third act breakup, whatever they fucking call it, I do think it was a little drawn out, and I think that, like, things could have been resolved in a much quicker and better way. And I didn't love, again, like, how much backstory we got, which, like, I guess aided to the story, but I just personally didn't need it. I don't think I would have felt less connected to the characters had we had less of this drawn out backstory. But overall, this was a really beautiful story. I loved getting to see the representation for somebody with bipolar disorder. I feel like that's not something we get to read about often, as well as her being bisexual and how that is seen in the eyes of people. For example, she was mainly dating women for a time, and somebody's like, well, you know, just because you like women, and she's like, I literally never said that. She's like, well, you're a lesbian, and she's like, no, I'm bisexual, and just because you see me with a woman doesn't mean I'm one thing. Like, don't assume things about people. I loved that sentiment, and I did really love to see their relationship, and I really loved getting to see this other, like, view on Cannon and Neva from book 1. I loved getting to see, like, little glimpses of them and see their story. The one thing that also I did not love, and this is, like, a little bit of a spoiler, so I will say that, there's a double epilogue, which I think is obnoxious. But in the epilogue part 2, there is this huge connotation throughout the book that Verity does not want kids. And her reasons for not wanting kids is because she doesn't want them to have bipolar disorder, which, like, whatever your reason for, as somebody who does not want kids, your reason for not wanting kids is fine. And that is, like, a thing once you have, like, a secure, stable relationship and a confident partner that you're with, your thoughts on that can change. But as somebody who doesn't want kids and has been told my whole life you're going to change your mind and you're going to eventually want kids, it does annoy me when books have, like, a character that I feel like I can relate to in a sense that they don't want children, and then always in the epilogue they change their mind, and that does piss me off a little bit. But overall, 4 stars. So in this book, we had a 2-star, unfortunately, with Blockshot, which I'm still very disappointed and devastated in. But in The Rebel King, we had a 5-star, which is incredible. That's still only 5-star this month. And then we have a 4-star with Score. So needless to say, Kennedy Ryan can have a pass on her one little mishap of a book that I did not like. But overall, she is the queen. She is wonderful. And her books always have such a powerful message in them. And that is something that I love so deeply about her books, is there's realness to them. people are dealing with real life things. It's not just some silly little small town romance. There's always a lot of heart. And yeah, that's going to be everything for today's video. If you made it to the end, depending on which one of these books you are most interested in, either leave me a basketball emoji for Blockshot, a music emoji for Score, or a globe emoji for Rebel King, because he's into saving the world. And that's going to be everything, friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.